European Parliament centrist groups have cut a deal to approve the new EU commissioners. Snow has begun falling across Europe as a front of cold air sweeps across the continent. The main centrist parties of the European Parliament, the European People's Party and the Social Democrats and Liberals have struck a deal to approve the new members of the European Commission. It means the new Commission, led by Ursula von der Leyen, can take office on the 1st of December. The three-party compromise cleared the way for 6 future vice presidents of the Commission, including the Spanish Teresa Ribera, who was criticised by the Conservatives for her management of the floods in Valencia. However, the EPP continues to call for her resignation in case she is indicted.
What we as Parliament have to guarantee is that the new Commission is a Commission who can really deliver, who can really act. If you have the possible shadow above you or the possible burden on your shoulder that you are involved in court cases, for example, at home, it is not so easy to do then the task on European level.
Alongside the 6 vice presidents, Hungary's Oliver Várhelyi also received the green light. But not everyone in the European Parliament was pleased with the backroom deals surrounding the candidates.
So unfortunately, the assessment of the most important ones, the 6 executive vice presidents, have become a mockery of a proper assessment. And that is not good for the European Parliament. So in that sense, we are very disappointed about that process, absolutely.
The 3 parties have also signed a cooperation agreement for this legislation with key policy areas, although it is not binding. The full College of Commissioners will be voted on next Wednesday at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Spain has announced a reform to its migration policy, which will grant residency and work permits to about 300,000 undocumented migrants each year for the next 3 years. The reform will simplify work and residence permit procedures, allowing migrants to register as self-employed or salaried workers and granting them additional labour rights.
El reglamento abre puertas que antes estaban cerradas mediante 3 llaves: formación, empleo y familia. 3 llaves que nos llevan a la inclusión, pero siendo muy exigentes con los requisitos jurídicos y exquisitos con los derechos humanos.
The policy will come into effect from May 2025 and is part of the country's efforts to expand its labour force in the face of an ageing population. Spain needs around 250,000 registered foreign workers a year to maintain its welfare state, and it's one of the European countries that receives the most irregular migrants annually. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has often described his government's migration policies as a strategy to combat the country's low birth rate. Danish and Nordic teams are continuing to inspect undersea cables after 2 were damaged in the Baltic Sea between Germany and Finland and Sweden and Lithuania.
I Østersøen, der vil jeg gerne gøre klart, at det ser jeg selvfølgelig på med stor alvor, ikke mindst i lyset af den aktuelle udenrigs- og sikkerhedspolitiske situation. Jeg noterer mig også, at man fra både tysk og svensk side offentligt har sagt, at man har mistanke om, at der kan være tale om sabotage. Og så frem det i tilfældet er det selvsagt meget bekymrende.
It comes after the Danish military announced it's monitoring a Chinese ship spotted in its waters just 2 days after the cables were cut. Marine traffic vessel tracking data showed the Chinese vessel Yipeng 3 anchored in the Kattegat Strait between Denmark and Sweden on Wednesday.
Thousands of workers in Greece have taken to the streets in protest as part of a 24-hour general strike called by labour unions to protest the rising cost of living. The strike action, backed by both public and private sector workers on Wednesday, disrupted economic activities in the capital, Athens, as well as the northern city of Thessaloniki.
Απαιτούμε, εφόσον έχουμε βγει από τα μνημόνια, γενναίες συντάξεις στις γενναίες αυξήσεις στις συντάξεις μας και στους μισθούς των εργαζόμενων. Δεν μπορεί η κυβέρνηση να σπαταλά δισεκατομμύρια για πολεμικούς εξοπλισμούς. Δεν μπορεί να να συμμετέχει στην γενοκτονία του Παλαιστινιακού λαού στέλνοντας φρεγάτες και σπαταλώντας τεράστια ποσά στα πλαίσια του ΝΑΤΟ.
Διεκδικούμε συλλογικές συμβάσεις εργασίας. Καλύτερες συνθήκες εργασίας για τους συναδέλφους μας και κυριότερο για την ακρίβεια και όλα αυτά που συμβαίνουν. Το μεγαλύτερο πρόβλημα αυτή τη στιγμή για τους νέους ανθρώπους είναι το πρόβλημα της στέγασης.
Greece's financial crisis saw a quarter of the country's economy wiped out after decades of profligate spending.
French farmers protested for a third day on Wednesday after setting up a blockade on the highway near the French-Spanish border. Their aim is to block heavy goods vehicle traffic from Spain to France, protesting against an EU-Mercosur trade deal with South American nations. The French Minister for Agriculture condemned the blockade, saying it risked undermining public empathy for the profession.
Protester contre le Mercosur, exprimer ses inquiétudes, revendiquer un certain nombre d'avancées dans différents domaines, c'est légitime. S'en prendre aux biens, s'en prendre aux personnes, bloquer durablement le pays, ça n'est pas acceptable.
The farmers say producers from countries that are part of the Mercosur agreement are not subject to regulations as strict as those in Europe. They also say it creates unfair competition with third countries.
The European Union's anti-fraud office opened an investigation into a Hungarian nursery that cost around €1.8 million, but has only 12 places available. The new nursery opened in September, but the problem is that each child attending will cost around €150,000 in EU funds. That's more than the price of a large family house in the local village.
Nyilvánvaló, hogy ez lopás, különösen, hogyha megnézzük a kivitelező céget, és attól, hogy kitől kértek még ajánlatot, ott is lehet összefüggéseket találni. Természetesen ez nem egy valódi közbeszerzés volt, egy irányított közbeszerzés volt.
Last week, the European Union's anti-fraud office, OLAF, opened an investigation into the expensive nursery.
Ezt egy szakemberrel kellene kivizsgáltatni, aki ért hozzá, meg független is valamennyire, ha van egyáltalán olyan.
A separate Hungarian investigation is ongoing in the village after the mayor's friend allegedly received about €1.2 million to create fish ponds, which he failed to account for.
Telefonon sikerült elérnünk Gecse Ákos polgármestert, ő azonban nem szeretett volna kameránk elé állni, mondván nem bízik meg a médiában. Azt viszont elárulta, hogy az esetleges túlárazással kapcsolatban már indult egy vizsgálat, és az önkormányzat csak azután fog közleményt kiadni, hogy ez lezárult. Siposhegyi Zoltán, Euronews, Kazár.
Ford says it will reduce its workforce by 4,000 in Europe and the UK by the end of 2027. The car manufacturer cited headwinds from the economy, pressure from increased competition, and weaker than expected sales of electric cars. In Europe, automakers must sell enough electric vehicles to meet new, lower limits for carbon dioxide emissions in 2025. Most of the job cuts, 2,900 in total, will come in Germany, where car sales have dropped significantly. This comes as consumers remain weary of inflation, while Germany also dropped government purchase incentives for electric vehicles. Car makers are also facing increasing competition from Chinese-made electric vehicles.
Snow has begun falling across Europe as a front of polar cold air sweeps across the continent. In Belgium, Tuesday's heavy rain and gale-force winds turned frosty, forming a layer of snow on the peaks near the Signal de Botrange. In Austria, truck drivers at the Arlberg Pass were forced to put snow chains on their vehicles until the late morning, while motorists in Poland were advised to put on winter tyres. Tourists in Poland have also been warned not to hike certain routes as an avalanche warning is in place. Temperatures in the Czech Republic dropped by up to 10 degrees overnight into Wednesday as rainfall turns to snow at altitudes above 400 metres. The Czech Hydrometeorological Institute says up to 12 centimetres of snow may fall in the east of the country on Thursday and Friday. And in Denmark, snowfall has led to slippery roads, causing a truck crash on the motorway between the cities of Nyborg and Odense. Climate change has led to worsening symptoms of pollen allergies, with around 1 million Danes claiming they can feel the effect as temperatures rise. The amount of pollen produced from plants has increased significantly since the 1980s, exacerbated by higher levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Vi følger jo selvfølgelig hele tiden udviklingen her. Og det, der ligesom er det nye, det er, at vi også begynder nu at se udbrud her i Tyskland, så det rykker jo længere og længere nord.
Warmer and wetter conditions are also leading to an increase in other infections and viruses.
Og flåter kan få bedre betingelser for at leve i varmt og fugtigt vejr, og de kan så smitte mennesker med forskellige eksotiske virus.
Changing global temperatures mean for people like Mette Lund, who takes allergy medication once a day, the onset of hay fever symptoms are starting to occur all year round. A volcano has erupted on Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula, triggering civil defence to declare a state of emergency and order evacuations of Grindavik and the Blue Lagoon. It's the country's 7th volcanic eruption this year, but the Icelandic Meteorological Office says it's a lot smaller than the previous one in August. The area's chief of police said there was no immediate danger and residents are well versed in how evacuations are carried out.